Welcome to SPINECHECKER'S Transmissions with Dr. Jeremy Brook. High-vibing, vitalistic wisdom to help you align, connect, and energize. Let's go. Today, we're embarking on a journey into the historical evolution of how I got into meditation, along with all of my other collection of mindset and breathing practices, ultimately guiding you into crafting your own personal morning ritual filled with intention and clarity. Now, mornings are powerful, so by weaving concentration, prayer, visualization, contemplation, meditation, and conscious breathing into the dawn's embrace, we can set a vibrational tone for the day, a tone resonating with purpose, intention, heart-opening moments, and connecting to your vision. Now, in this podcast, I'm going to unpack my morning routine designed to set my day's rhythm. And remember, the day shouldn't set our tone. We should set the day's tone. Now, diving into the yogic breath practices or pranayama, a question often emerges like, what's the optimal sequence? Some techniques heat, others cool, some invigorate, while others are more subtle. Traditionally, pranayama follows like the physical yoga poses, like the idea you start with the tangible, the dense, and then move towards the ethereal using like physical postures to activate prana, your life force, and then practice the pranayama, the directed controlling of your life force to purify the energy channels and centers. This pathway leads us to realize we're essentially energy and space. The famous saying, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, encapsulates this belief. And our essence ultimately is going to be vibrating differently based on like the dominant elemental constitution that makes up you, the earth, the water, the fire, or the air. And the asanas, the poses, aid in clearing the physical blockages, prepping us for the pranayama and ultimately a more profound meditative state. Personally, my yoga journey is rooted in the vinyasa, like this dynamic, fluid flowing synchronization, breath and movement, crafting a dance of like energy and intention. Now it's like got this fluidity component, and the fluidity melds the asanas into like this cosmic choreography, sculpting sacred geometry in your flesh and energy, where the yogi becomes a vessel carrying the energy of the universe. All right, so that's where my mind's at when I'm doing my physical practice. Yet, while the traditional order begins with physical movements and ends with sitting, I've experimented with the reverse, where I do the sitting practice, the concentration, breathing, contemplation, and meditation first, and then I'll do my robust physical practice. But classically, it's physical movements and then the sitting practice. Now, broadly, my approach to yoga is inspired by Patanjali's 8-limbed path, from the yamas and the niyamas, the ethical guidelines, to the asana, the physical postures, the pranayama, the breath control, then pratyahara, that's the sense withdrawal and one-pointed focus, the dharana, the deep concentration, the dhyana, there's your meditation, and then samadhi, which is a profound state of meditative absorption and awareness where the individual self dissolves into a unified awareness. It's a pinnacle of the 8-limbed yogic practice, characterized by a transcendent sense of unity, bliss, and liberation from the illusions of individual identity. Yeah, that's samadhi. All right, so for my mornings, I'm going to dwell in the realms of pratyahara, which is the sense withdrawal and one-pointed focus, and dharana, which is the deep concentration. My primary challenge, quieting this energetic monkey mind that's exploding with life projects and, household responsibilities. But most importantly, you got to find and create a quiet space. And I think about this space as like this revitalization chamber. Now, look, I like my meditation space quiet where I'm not going to be distracted.
Like, have you ever been to a yoga class and you're trying to meditate and somebody comes in late and instead of, you know, just sitting right by the door in silence, they decide to flip out their yoga mat, which makes a lot of noise. Maybe they start rattling and jingling their keys and their cell phone starts beeping. And then, of course, the yoga teacher says in their beautiful yoga voice, that sound and that distraction is part of the meditation. Like, okay, yes, there's value to that. You know, you need to be able to stay focused and unbothered during rattling moments. But when I'm doing this practice, I want it to be super quiet so I can actually go deep, activating brainwave states like alpha and theta. So my practice, although rooted in tradition, does embrace modern biohacks. So I cherish the quiet spaces for meditation, like the spaces free from distractions. But nowadays, I often begin my sessions kneeling, embodying the spirit of a samurai in communion with my higher self, all the while positioned on a vibrating power plate. The power plate sends vibrations throughout my entire body, stirring my cells to life. Now, if you can't kneel, make sure you have a cushion to sit on that, kind of like what I'm doing, that's going to keep your hips slightly elevated from your knees so you can sit tall with an elevated spine. Now, another beneficial biohack that I use and you may want to add is called photobiomodulation, aka red and near infrared light. I actually have a free, cool offering on my online class portal called Dynamic Meditation that covers this aspect of my morning meditation practice. So check it out at SpineCheckerUniversity.com. So if you can visualize this, like this setup, I'm kneeling on like this vibrating power plate. The infrared lamp is positioned so that it hits me right in my heart center. And then like stacked right on top of the red lamp is this sacred geometrical pattern made out of wood that's laser cut. It's called the Sri Yantra. It's a visual tool to connect with higher states of consciousness, aid in meditation, and channel spiritual energies. Sign me up for that. You know what I mean? So if you want to learn more about the Sri Yantra and go down this like incredible rabbit or wormhole, it's powerful and has been an integral part of my concentration/meditation routine. Now, before I get into the Sri Yantra, I like to set the tone by doing some prayers, gratitude prayers, love prayers, opening my heart center, connecting to the universe, focusing on like what brings me strength and alignment and connection, like what's in my heart, what's in my like intention for the day, and then ultimately how to spread peace throughout my entire body and in every interaction that I experience throughout the day. I mean, like that's the goal. So if you're feeling intimidated by breath work and meditation, like I understand. My own journey began humbly and evolved from literally sitting in a quiet place, no binaural beats or red lights, no concentration devices, no masks. I just sat still and tried to mentally count down my breaths from 50 to 0. And when I got to 0, I would just like sit in peace. And as I progressed, I began guiding my breath along my spine, adjusting the duration of the inhales and the exhales, like changing the ratio of inhale to exhale, like a 2-to-3 ratio. All right. And then how long I could take it. Now, rewinding to the time before 2000, my yoga journey was rooted in like the physical practice. I transitioned from Bihar, like a Shivananda Hatha yoga, a serene classical style, to an athletic vinyasa class taught by a young Tim Chan at Gold's Gym up in San Jose, where I was going to chiropractic college. Now, this shift in style was like invigorating. One memorable Halloween, Tim introduced us to his teacher, Marti Foster, and I was immediately enthralled by Marty's eloquent grace and powerful presence. Eventually, I became her student, like she was my main teacher, and I immersed myself deeply in vinyasa during my chiropractic studies. Now, one day, curious about the term Marti used at the end of class, I asked her the meaning of namaste, and she replied, it means the divine in me honors and bows to the divine in you. And I was like, wow, that's so deep. And I then returned my namaste back to her. Now, I was so moved by Marti's teachings that I actually wanted to delay my move back to Los Angeles from Northern California after I graduated from chiropractic school for about a year so I could continue study and practice with her. But my dad suggested I get my butt back down to Los Angeles and open up my practice and get to work. More on that story for another time. But in chiropractic school, my regimen was mostly devoid of meditation and breath work. However, when I would come back to Los Angeles for spring, summer, fall, or winter breaks, I then discovered that there were some of the top yoga teachers in America teaching at this studio in Santa Monica called Yoga Works. So this is like in the middle of the golden era of yoga in Los Angeles, like 1999, 2000. And it was already something special earlier than that, since Yoga Works opened up its doors in 1987. But here I met Miriam Ascari, a student of the legendary BKS Iyengar, where Miriam introduced me to the Ujjayi pranayama, a breathing technique. So to create the Ujjayi sound or Ujjayi breath, one can just constrict the back of the throat, similar to the constriction made when speaking in a whisper. So it's like a Darth Vader breath, but with the mouth closed. Ujjayi is one of the most important pranayama, as described in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, like the classical yogic texts from the 1500s. Ujjayi breath encourages the movement of energy spontaneously and naturally from the practitioner's root center by the tailbone to the crown, the seventh chakra. The Ujjayi breath is like a full body energetic experience that passes through the Sushumna Nadi, or the central channel of energy that runs through the spine. Now, having incorporated Ujjayi breath with my developing vinyasa practice, combined with my biomechanical knowledge from chiropractic school, my yoga practice began taking off to exciting dimensions. Now, this is where things get wild, because one day after returning from my quick break in Santa Monica, practicing at Yoga Works, I'm right back in Marti's yoga class, excited to infuse my newfound Ujjayi pranayama with Marti's insightful, functional, therapeutic, and energetic vinyasa choreography. In fact, every one of her classes was different, and she was known for reading the energy of the class and completely modifying the direction we were traveling in and transport us into a new vector. It was pure mastery. All right, so check it out. We're in the middle of the apex of the class. Marti brings us into this long hold and triangle pose. She tells us to close our eyes and imagine the color red. Now, with my Ujjayi pranayama flowing strongly, I became completely immersed in triangle pose, trikonasana. Everything went blank. I went black. And then out of the corner of my right eye, I began seeing this red fireball sun coming through my periphery. And I'm checking out this red fireball sun coming through my periphery. And then it passed through the left visual field. And then I remember just marveling at this incredible ball of fire. And then what was replaced were grids, kind of like the movie Tron or an Alex Gray painting. And then I began to see DNA strands. And no, I was not on acid. This is just yoga, movement, and breath. But from that experience, I became curiously possessed to return to the quiet darkness, create this black void, and wait for the special realm to emerge from behind the veil. And then if I was lucky, I could get back into this inner energetic tapestry where I would be consumed with white light and grids of energy. Well, that would only last for a few minutes because it was hard to hold that focus in my mind's eye, but it gave me a glimpse into something magnificent, something profound. So that's my deep dive into Ujjayi pranayama. It's an important and critical and vital breath you should consider doing. So things are starting to take off for me in the yoga realm, and my thirst for yoga led me to Bikram yoga or Bikram yoga. Bikram yoga, founded by the controversial understatement, guru back in 1974. And it comprised of 26 postures, 2 breathing exercises, and is practiced in a systematic sequence in a room heated to like 104 degrees Fahrenheit and set to maybe 40 to 60% humidity. I love the sequence, like straight up. I still practice this system once a week with my teacher, Carrie Jaffe, at my favorite studio in Venice Beach called Shefa Yoga Venice. Check that out too. But the 2 breathing exercises are fantastic. Like one involves a deep nasal breath and then exhaling through the mouth while bringing the neck into extension with an open mouth exhale. It's the only like mainstream style of yoga that devotes attention to the cervical curve of the neck. And as a chiropractor, I appreciate that. And I got to say, the systematic progressive neck sequence I curated at the Life Center Chiropractic that, 6 parts to it, is the most holistic yogic movement vinyasa sequence on the planet. Yeah, I said that. Like, you can discover and memorize this exquisite movement experience at Spine Checkers yoga program, The Wise Progressions, under the cervical salutation section. Yeah, it's a salutation for your neck, and you're not going to be disappointed. SpineCheckerUniversity.com, our main sponsor. All right, boom. Oh, yeah. So the breathing that I was just referring to is like fantastic. Try not to hit the mic, but you have the hands underneath the chin. There's the big inhale as such, and then there's an exhale, bringing the neck into extension, bringing the elbows towards one another. Absolutely fantastic. The Bikram breathing sequence with cervical curve activation. The other breathing exercise done at the end of the practice is called Kapalabhati, or skull shining breath, that involves like rapid, relatively forceful exhalations, like followed by like passive inhalations. And this is one of my favorite kind of like vigorous forms of pranayama to this day. Basically, you're pumping your abdominal muscles around and below your navel center towards your spine with each forceful exhalation. In the 26 and 2 Bikram lineage, this is done 2 times, and it kind of goes something like this. It's like a yeah. And look, if you're watching or listening to this and you're inspired to do these breathing exercises, just know there are contraindications to doing them. So if you have cardiac problems or active spinal disc disorders, especially in the low back, respiratory infections, or you're a pregnant woman, you probably shouldn't do it. I actually start out slowly and then build up the speed with Kapalabhati. All right, so that's Kapalabhati, and I'm going to slide back into a different position. During another chiropractic quarterly break in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, I revisited Yoga Works. An individual at the front desk, what's up, Sonia, if you're checking this out, she recommended that I try Ashtanga yoga led by renowned yoga master Chuck Miller. What's intriguing about Mysore Ashtanga yoga is the way that it's practiced. At 6 a.m., yogis gather in a room, each performing the same sequence but at their individual pace, synchronizing their breath with their movements, right? Now, this style comprises 6 different series or levels. Your proficiency determines how many poses within a given series you're permitted to execute. Now, being in that room, it felt like a ginormous, like quantum leap from playing high school baseball to the major leagues. The yogis around me demonstrated skills nearing levitation. It was a sacred space, and anyone who practiced there at that early hour would testify to its magic. Those sessions remain etched in my memory. On my inaugural day, Chuck's assistant, Steve, welcomed me. He instructed me to start with 5 sun salutations A and another 5 sun salutations B, after which he would introduce the subsequent progression. Once I concluded the salutations, Chuck approached me and he powerfully stood next to me and over me. I mean, he might be like 6'5". I mean, he's a tall man, tremendous presence, and he guided me into the Tadasana pose, mountain pose, sharing insights about my breath, my roots, and my core. And I stood in that position for what seemed like an eternity, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Like I thought he forgot about me. It might have been like 30 minutes, but I couldn't be sure. But gradually I was taught one pose after another. Each pose was expected to be memorized. Like you didn't have any cheat sheets, no aids, no reminders allowed. And this marked the onset of my Ashtanga journey. This journey continued until Chuck and his partner, the legendary Marti Foster, rest in peace, sold Yoga Works around 2005 and then relocated to Hawaii. And that transition's like a tale for another time. But the philosophical wisdom I gained from Chuck during my mid to late 20s spurred a deeper exploration of the 8-limbed yoga approach. I was particularly drawn to the yamas and the niyamas, like life's don'ts and do's, like the moral and ethical and spiritual guidelines as outlined by the sage Patanjali. Like it became pivotal for me as I evolved from a chiropractic intern to a soon-to-be doctor of chiropractic. So simultaneously, I was immersed 100% in both chiropractic and yoga, purging the tumultuous residues from my teenage and early 20s and reconciling with my parents' ongoing divorce. So this period was instrumental in clearing my system, and I remain deeply appreciative of my time with Chuck, the way he taught me to stand, connect to my breath, to my roots, and to my core. Chronologically speaking, another profound influence on my inward journey dropped into my energetic field in my final year in chiropractic school. This is Dr. Arno Burnier, arguably my master chiropractic teacher. His impact on my development as a healthcare professional and educator in the domains of health, healing, and well-being cannot be overstated. And as I reflect, it astonishes me to think about this myriad of mentors who crossed my paths, Dr. Burnier being paramount among them. And I got to just give another shout out to Dr. Ron Oberstein, Dr. Fred Schofield, Dr. Mindy Pels. You guys are legends for me. All right, so this discussion actually began as a reflection of my morning meditation routine. And I must highlight Arno's, Dr. Burnier's pivotal role, where he envisioned raising the collective consciousness of humanity and training chiropractors to become the epitome of their profession, delivering unparalleled adjustments. He pioneered a seminar back in the 80s called Making Love to the Spine. And while it might seem kind of audacious, its essence was pure and profound. The seminar aimed to instill chiropractors with a renewed sense of respect, precision, and compassion and focus when approaching their adjustments and the people that they were serving. So in the early 80s, Arno observed that many chiropractic adjustments seemed aggressive and lacked the reverence required for the intricate nature of the human spine and the nervous system. The seminar eventually evolved, mirroring its foundational values, and was appropriately named Mastery, Love, and Service. So Arno enriched my philosophical understanding of chiropractic care like no other. Additionally, he introduced me to a holistic chiropractic regimen that melded mental and physical practices, inclusive of deep diaphragmatic breathing exercises. This regimen integrated bandhas, or energetic locks, channeling the potency of martial arts into adjustments, without the combative elements. So our training emphasized what we termed strikes, and we'd vocalize like a ki or a with every strike. Now, our mornings were characterized by yoga, chiropractic strengthening, breathing exercises, and hundreds of strikes with different type of vectors. We also incorporated heart-centered gratitude and forgiveness practices, which I still weave into my morning routine. This holistic approach harmonized perfectly with my Ashtanga yoga discipline and my fervor for delivering precise and impactful chiropractic adjustments. Arno recently authored a book, The Cafe of Life and the Mosquito Principle, spanning 420 pages. I found it captivating, like reading it from start to finish in mere days. It's a compelling, emotional read. I highly recommend it. 5 stars. All right. By this stage in my journey, I had integrated Ujjayi pranayama from the Vinyasa tradition, Kapalabhati skull shining breath from Bikram, martial arts style diaphragmatic breathing with heart-centered visualization from Arno, and the grounding technique of breathing from my roots through my core as taught by Chuck Miller. Yet I still lacked a formal seated meditation practice. My structured meditation journey began after graduating from chiropractic school. In my inaugural year of practice, I devotedly adhered to Ashtanga, arriving to the studio around 6 a.m. and practiced with other dedicated yogis for 2 hours. I mean, I started adjusting my patients at 10 a.m. That's how focused I was on my Ashtanga practice. During this period, I stumbled upon an article in Yoga Journal profiling a soulful yoga maestro titan who had trained under BKS Iyengar, another legend, right? So amidst the murmurs of his prowess around the studio, this article compelled me to experience his teachings firsthand. One day, while awaiting the start of class, I struck up a conversation with a tall gentleman donning long sandy blonde hair, a button-down shirt, just super jovial. Little did I realize that this approachable man with whom I chatted for a good 10 minutes was the renowned Erich Schiffmann. Now, as I settled into the center of the room, Erich took his position at the front. He said something like, "Okay, here's the format. We're going to meditate for a few minutes first, and then I'm going to ring the bell." He then says, "Sit up tall. Are you ready?" And then he hits this, Tibetan metal bowl with a stick. I close my eyes, he rings the bell, and it seemed like 40 minutes goes by, but it was really 5 minutes. In subsequent sessions, he introduced a meditation technique, counting down from 50 with each inhale and exhale. Inhale, and then on the exhale, I would mentally count 50. Inhale 49, exhales 48. The objective was simple: reach 0 without losing the count. At first, getting past 35 was an accomplishment in itself. This technique became my foundational meditation practice. Racing through the streets of Los Angeles to reach his class punctually became a ritual. If you know anything about me, it's that on time means at least 20 minutes early, akin to being the first to board a flight after arriving 2 hours early. All right, so that's just who I am. I embrace it. And yes, when the seatbelt light goes off on the airplane, I do stand up immediately. All right, so over time, Erich enriched my meditation experience, providing insights on connecting the conscious mind to a greater universal consciousness, and then tuning into the message that followed therein. I attribute the strengthening of my seated meditation to him. His seminal work, Moving into Stillness, is a testament to his teachings. Though it's been nearly 2 decades since I last read it, I feel drawn to revisit its pages right after this podcast. For anyone seeking depth in their yoga practice, I highly recommend getting a copy, perhaps 2, gifting one to a fellow seeker. Gratitude fills me whenever I think of Erich. I love you and thank you. Now, drawing inspiration from Erich's Vinyasa programming and sequencing, because he was a master sequencer, I meticulously crafted the dynamic yogic movement sequence program at the Life Center. So his teachings were instrumental in my development of Vinyasa patterns that cater to every single nuanced nook and cranny of the spine and its gateways, namely the shoulders and the hips. So for those interested, these insights, once again, are accessible online at SpineCheckerUniversity.com. That's SpineChecker's yoga program. I'm cautious about not transforming this dialogue into a blatant promotional session. But on a side note, if any potential advertisers align with the essence of this podcast, I'm open to collaboration. But for now, I'd like to acknowledge Seatopia as the esteemed sponsor of SpineCheckers Transmissions. Seatopia is a certified, clean, guilt-free, sushi-grade seafood delivered to your door. This company is actually pioneering regenerative aquaculture for the direct-to-consumer market. All right, transitioning to the profound act of listening inward, it often prompts a pivotal question like, how do we discern which internal voice we should be tuning into? So through consistent meditation, through physical practice and chiropractic adjustments, I'm finally tuning my ability to distinguish between my true inner voice and the cacophony of misleading whisperers. When I encounter a distorted or altered voice, particularly during moments of fatigue or irritability, I consciously choose to mute it, sensing it as a sign to recalibrate and slow down. Tuning into our inner voice or intuition is paramount. It's a compass that often points us in the right direction, fuels us with innate thought flashes, and guides us in the right direction. With each passing day, I find myself more attuned to this internal guidance system. Now, my most recent journey into meditation was initiated by a remarkable teacher named Yancy Schwartz at, again, the prominent yoga studio, Chef of Yoga in Venice. Encouraged by a friend's recommendation, I decided to explore Yancy's Rocket Yoga class. Now, for those unfamiliar, Rocket Yoga, intriguingly named, is a dynamic form of yoga founded by Larry Schultz in San Francisco during the 1980s. Schultz was a disciple of Pattabhi Jois, the luminary behind Ashtanga Yoga and also Chuck Miller's teacher. Rocket Yoga is like this really cool collaboration of traditional Ashtanga and various dynamic sequences with a pronounced emphasis on inversions and arm balances. So having taken a hiatus from Ashtanga Yoga around 2005, I was initially hesitant to delve back into its rapid, super fast-paced flow. But persistent acclaim for Yancy's sessions nudged me to revisit my Ashtanga roots. So here we go. You enter his room in silence. Focused yogis are setting up for a spiritual battle on their yoga mats. The room's set up just like old school Ashtanga. 2 long rows, each facing the middle, and then we're called to the front of the yoga mat, kind of like Chuck would call us to the front of the yoga mat in Tadasana, where we would in unison chant the Ashtanga invocation chant, and then it's rocket time. Now, Yancy's unique teaching vibe, characterized by this meditative focus and energetic cues, struck a chord within my soul. And every Tuesday at 4 p.m., I found myself faithfully at his class. Interestingly, at the end of many sessions, Yancy would promote his Wednesday night's psychic development class as the ultimate class. Psychic development uses techniques to strengthen thoughts, change mental patterns, purify the 72,000 nadis, those psychic energy channels, and increase concentration, make thoughts creative, and increase your personal aura. So these divine esoteric teachings were passed down to him from his guru, Sri Dharma Mitra, who got it from his guru, Sri Kali Ashananda. Hopefully I said his name right. It's not my guru, but my guru's guru's guru. So I got to show respect. Now, Dharma Mitra's noteworthy contribution to yoga also includes that huge master yoga chart of 908 postures where, after having photographed himself in 1,300 yoga postures, he then cut out these postures and then pasted these pictures to create this inspiring piece of art, which also happens to adorn my walls at my chiropractic practice. Now, on a like fascinating tangent, while watching a documentary on the Beastie Boys, I noticed the very same yoga chart in the background of a clip featuring the bedroom of the legendary Rick Rubin. That's pretty cool. So we're going back into the 80s. Rick Rubin, meditator, I guess a yogi, Dharma Mitra student. So look, I'm just a big Beastie Boys fan, especially back in the late 1990s. In fact, Check Your Head, that album is still one of my all-time favorite. It's all like my top 5 favorite albums, followed by another one of their albums. It's more instrumental. It's called The In Sound from the Way Out. Check out those 2 albums. They're just dynamite. We just had a little technical difficulty, so hopefully everything is working normal. So back to Yancy's class, which was truly a gem. Techniques like Shanmukhi Mudra and the Bhramari breath were also introduced, both of which I hadn't extensively practiced before. Now, Shanmukhi Mudra, it's like this sacred hand gesture that emphasizes closing off of the 6 gates of perception to channelize one's vital energy. To practice Shanmukhi Mudra, you got to first raise both of your hands in front of your face with your elbows pointing outwards in line with your shoulders. Now with the eyes closed, you're going to like gently press the index fingers to the inner corners of the eyes, and then you place the middle fingers on either side of the nose, and then the ring and the little finger go above and below the mouth, and then you use the thumbs to gently close the ears by pressing on the tragus. The spine should remain upright and the shoulders relax. Shanmukhi Mudra is usually practiced for 5 to 10 minutes, and it's often coupled with the Bhramari breath, a unique pranayama resembling the hum of a bee. It involves a short inhale followed by a long exhale while making a humming or buzzing sound while closing off your ears. So the index finger is used to press down on the tragus to block the external sound again. And this technique enables the practitioner to focus on the inner vibrations created by the Bhramari breath. This pranayama has tremendous potential because, again, it's going to stimulate the vagus nerve and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So it looks something like this. Here you can actually hear it, whereas the Shanmukhi Mudra, it's pretty much, if you're just listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you're just not going to hear anything. But here is the Bhramari breath. Kind of cool. All right. Other methods would involve different type of hand mudras and isolated nasal breathing. You've probably heard of alternate nostril breathing, but in psychic development, we kind of like focused on the purification of the sun channel. And today, I actually find immense joy in practicing these techniques daily, leading me to the current chapter of my journey. Now, after the sitting practice, I delve deep into my movement and yoga routines. My practice is primarily comprised of sun salutation sequences and progressive vinyasa sequences. Additionally, I incorporate 4-minute nitric oxide exercises inspired by Dr. Zach Bush. After this invigorating routine, I move to my healing center, the Life Center Chiropractic. Here I engage in a more advanced breathing practice reminiscent of the techniques popularized by Wim Hof. It's the 2-part inhalation process, first the belly, then the chest, followed by like a thorough exhale. This breathing ritual is complemented by running the biocharger, like the ultimate biohacking device. You got to check that out. And I also do another meditative session. During the meditative session, I'm going to chant the Bija mantras to align my energy centers. A Bija mantra is a single syllable sound that can be used in meditation to activate and cultivate health, vitality, and inspiration. In Sanskrit, Bija translates to seed. So when you practice meditation using the Bija mantras, It's like watering the seeds of your highest purpose to bring mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual balance and to create harmony within your ecosystem. So I'm going to focus on like the 7 energy centers while visualizing their specific color, and then chant them straight up the spine like Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Om. And it's a silent Om when you get to the top. So at times my meditation takes place like seated on a unique piece of equipment known as the wobble chair right behind me that's going to aid in the circulation of my spinal tissues and cerebrospinal fluid. On other occasions, I stand atop a nail board from Gravity Mind Board. I've actually managed to increase my endurance standing on it for up to 45 minutes. After this holistic preparation, my body feels invigorated. I'm ready for delivering adjustments and some of the healing work. That, in essence, my friends, is my daily ritual, my daily morning ritual. So that's the evolution. I'm like an Om chanting, bee buzzing, skull shining, Ujjayi breathing, vibration plate sitting, Sri Yantra gazing, alternate and single nostril breathing, mixed pranayama artist, you know, the modern day biohacker. And that should, in essence, encapsulate my evolving mindset, meditation, breathing, concentration journey. I threw a lot at you. First and foremost, if you want to get into like more advanced styles of pranayama, find somebody who's versed and trained in the technique and method. You got to play it smart and safe. By structuring your morning with prayer, contemplation, visualization, meditation, and breath work, you're investing in your well-being and inviting positivity into your life. Embrace this practice daily and watch your days become more peaceful and fulfilling. Now, if you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Share your morning holistic rituals and experiences in the comments below, and let's inspire each other on this beautiful journey. I'm wishing you all a morning filled with love, peace, and profound connections. Until next time, peace and have a magical day.